What's up, y'all? It's Poker Boy, aka Coleman Morning, back at it with a poker blog. Today we are playing heads up against Liam Van-Fossan in a 25-cent, 50-cent small blind, big blind. We are heads up in a $5 buy-in. Our first hand is 3 of clubs, 8 of spades. Not a very strong hand, but we look to play it as we are the big blind. I will check since our opponent calls us. The flop comes 3 of hearts, 5 of clubs, and 4 of diamonds, which means we do connect with a pair, but it is bottom pair, so we are not looking to play too long. Our opponent bets 50 cents, and since it's such a cheap price, we will call. Most likely that our opponent has an overpair to our pair, but we will still play as the 9 comes out on the board, the 9 of hearts. Not good for our hand, but we will see to what our opponent does, and he checks, which means we'll check back and see the last card. It is a 10, which is horrible for our hand. Our opponent goes out with a whole dollar. We're not looking to play, and we get rid of our hand as soon as possible. Our opponent is nice enough to flip his hand. And he reveals the 5 and the 6, showing he had a higher pair than we did. We are now in the small blind as we look down to see that our hand is the 4 of spades and the 9 of hearts. We will call even though our hand is not very good, just because our opponent could easily have something worse than what we do. If you're playing with multiple people, I do not recommend calling that hand, as it is terrible. The flop comes the queen of spades, the jack of spades, the jack of clubs, and the 7 of hearts. We'll check because our hand is very inferior to the board, and luckily our opponent checks back. The jack of spades comes on the board, leaving us very vulnerable to anything as we don't have any overcards. We will fold as our opponent most likely has a good pair, but he shows that he is one off a good shot straight draw. Not a bad fold considering that we would have lost either way. We look down to see we have 9 jack offsuit. Not a bad hand, and I'm very eager to play this. It's one of my favorite offsuit hands. We are in the big blind, so we wait for our opponent to take action. And Liam does decide to call our jack. We will knock, as our hand is good but not great. Flop comes jack of hearts, 10 of clubs, and 8 of clubs. I am a little worried of a flush draw, but I think we are strong as we do have top pair. Our opponent does lead out with 50 cents. Look down to our hand, and we make the call. And the king of spades comes on the board. A little scary for our hand, but it is not a big problem. Our opponent checks, and we lead out with 50 cents. At times where he checks, it's most likely that he's weak, and he is, as he does fold. A good fold for him, respectively, even though he was one off the straight. Probably wouldn't have hit, so it's not a bad play from our opponent. We are now in the small blind, which is unfavorable, but we can still do a lot of damage from this position. We look down to 2-4 offsuit, very weak hand, and honestly I should not be calling as a small blind, but I will make the call since we are heads up. You know, anything can happen on the river. Our opponent checks, and we look down to 8, 9, and ace. 8 of diamonds, 9 of spades, and ace of spades. Horrible for our hand. All we really have are some backdoor straight draws. Our opponent leads with 50, so it's time to let go of our hand. We show him, and it looks like we made the right fold. I mean, a very simple play, but it seemed effective as we did not lose a lot of money. We are now on to our last hand of the day. Luckily, I am in the big blind, which is good for our last hand. Hopefully we get a good hand here. And luckily we do. We get JK offsuit. Very strong hand, especially for heads up. I'll put in my my 2 chips. I didn't know what I was thinking there, honestly. Our opponent calls, and we decide to raise it to $1 pre-flop. Our opponent makes a call rather quickly, which scares me, but I am still excited for this flop. Flop comes 2, 2, king. Great for our hand here, as we have top 2 pair. The only thing that can beat us is pocket aces or any combo with 2 in it. Our opponent checks and we lead out for 50, and our opponent makes the fold. We flip over our monster, and it looks like our opponent made a great fold there. We shake hands as it is the end of our game now. A great day of poker. Our final cash out, we go exactly even, ending with $5. If you like this type of content, make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for future uploads. See ya!